Number 12. Mirrors in the soul trap. Did you know your reflection was once thought to be your actual soul? Medieval folks sure did. They believed mirrors could literally trap your spirit, leaving you vulnerable to all kinds of supernatural dangers. When someone died in a medieval household, all mirrors would be covered immediately. This wasn't just out of respect, it was a protective measure to prevent the deceased soul from getting trapped in the reflective surface while trying to pass to the afterlife. Even more concerning was the belief that if you saw your reflection at night by candlelight, you might spot a demon or the devil himself looking back at you instead of your own face. The fear ran so deep that breaking a mirror wasn't just considered clumsy, it meant 7 years of absolutely terrible luck because you'd fractured your own soul. Wealthy medieval people who owned precious mirrors, which were rare and expensive luxuries, would sometimes employ servants whose sole job was to protect and properly handle these dangerous soul-capturing devices. When traveling, mirrors would be carefully wrapped and stored, and many people refused to sleep in rooms containing uncovered mirrors. The superstition was so powerful that some medieval physicians even warned patients against looking at themselves while ill, believing their weakened souls might escape into the mirror, leaving their bodies to die. Number 11. Cat companions of witches. Ever wondered why black cats get such a bad rap? In medieval times, these innocent felines were believed to be the actual companions or familiars of witches. The hysteria around cats, especially black ones, reached fever pitch when Pope Gregory IX issued the Vox in Rama in the 1230s, essentially declaring black cats as instruments of Satan. People genuinely believed witches could transform into cats at night to sneak around undetected, spying on neighbors and causing mischief. Some medieval communities held festivals where cats were thrown from tall towers or burned alive in public ceremonies to ward off evil, a horrifying practice that persisted for centuries. Ironically, this mass killing of cats may have contributed to the spread of the Black Death, as fewer cats meant more disease-carrying rats. Medieval peasants would nail horseshoes above their doors not just for general luck but specifically to prevent witches' cats from entering their homes. There were elaborate rituals for protecting your home from a witch's cat, including spreading mustard seeds at your doorstep. Cats supposedly had to count each seed before entering. The paranoia was so extreme that owning too many cats, especially if you were an older woman living alone, could get you accused of witchcraft. Meanwhile, sailors took the opposite approach, considering cats lucky on ships and often having a designated ship's cat to protect against bad luck at sea. Number 10. The evil eye curse. Have you ever felt someone staring at you with such intensity that it made your skin crawl? Medieval people would have immediately assumed you were receiving the evil eye. This wasn't just a mean look, it was believed to be a powerful curse cast simply through a malevolent gaze. The evil eye superstition transcended cultural boundaries, appearing across medieval Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. People believed that envious or malicious glances could cause livestock to stop producing milk, crops to wither, children to fall ill, and even strong men to waste away. To combat this invisible attack, medieval folks carried amulets shaped like eyes or hands, wore blue beads, especially around children's necks, and made specific hand gestures to deflect the evil power. The fear was so pervasive that compliments were considered dangerous unless accompanied by protective phrases like "God bless" or "if God wills it," to prevent accidentally casting the evil eye through admiration. Medieval mothers were particularly cautious about who they allowed to view their newborns, often keeping babies hidden from public view for the first weeks of life. In some regions, special rituals involving egg whites dropped in water were used to diagnose if someone had been overlooked, affected by the evil eye, while cures involved elaborate ceremonies with blessed water, prayers, and sometimes the saliva of the person suspected of casting the evil eye in the first place. Number 9. Changeling children. What if your baby wasn't actually your baby at all? This terrifying thought haunted medieval parents who firmly believed in changelings, fairy children secretly swapped for human babies. When a child became suddenly ill, developed differently, or displayed unusual behaviors, which today might be recognized as autism, epilepsy, or other medical conditions, medieval parents often suspected supernatural interference. The belief was that fairies, elves, or sometimes demons would steal healthy human babies and leave their own sickly, malformed offspring in their place. The methods for detecting a changeling were as bizarre as they were dangerous, from forcing the child to sit on a hot shovel to brewing beer in eggshells to surprise the changeling into revealing its true age and nature. Even more disturbing were the cures, which included abandoning the suspected changeling on a hillside, dunking it in a river, or exposing it to fire to force the fairies to return the stolen human child. Throughout medieval Europe, stories circulated of mothers who successfully retrieved their real children through these horrific methods, reinforcing the superstition. Some regions developed protective rituals, like placing iron objects in the cradle. Fairies supposedly abhorred iron, or hanging certain herbs above a baby's bed. The changeling belief persisted well into the 19th century and resulted in countless child deaths and abandonments throughout the medieval period, all based on the desperate hope of recovering a stolen human child. Number 8. Blood and its magical properties. Could blood really contain magical powers? Medieval people were absolutely convinced it did. Blood wasn't just a bodily fluid, it was the very essence of life, power, and spiritual energy. Medieval nobility claimed to have blue blood, suggesting their bloodlines were literally different from commoners. When kings fell ill, physicians would sometimes recommend drinking the blood of young, healthy individuals, usually children, to restore vitality. Blood was considered so powerful that execution sites became popular gathering spots for people hoping to collect blood-soaked soil or pieces of the execution rope, believed to hold magical healing properties. The blood of executed criminals was particularly prized, with epilepsy sufferers sometimes drinking it warm at executions in hopes of a cure. Medieval builders often incorporated animal blood and occasionally human blood from willing donors into the mortar of churches and important buildings, believing it would strengthen the structures against evil and decay. The blood of martyred saints was collected in ornate reliquaries and displayed in churches, where pilgrims would travel hundreds of miles hoping to be healed by proximity to these holy blood relics. The belief in blood's power extended to menstruation as well, with menstrual blood considered both extremely dangerous and potentially magical, capable of killing crops if a menstruating woman walked through a field, but also believed to cure certain ailments when properly prepared in secret folk remedies. Number 7. Werewolf transformations. Have your neighbors been acting strangely lately? Medieval villagers might have suspected werewolves in their midst. Unlike modern fictional werewolves who transform with the full moon, medieval werewolves were believed to be people who could change form at will, often with the help of magical salves or belts made from wolf skin. The fear of werewolves was so real that throughout the medieval period, there were actual werewolf trials alongside witch trials. In 1521, the infamous Werewolf of Chalons was executed after reportedly abducting children, murdering them, and consuming their flesh. Medieval courts took these cases completely seriously, recording detailed confessions from the accused, typically obtained under torture, about their transformations and crimes. Some medieval medical texts even attempted to explain the condition of lycanthropy as a mental illness where the afflicted merely believed they transformed into wolves, while still acknowledging the possibility of actual physical transformation through demonic pacts. Special weapons, including silver and blessed objects, were kept by villagers living near forests where werewolf activity was suspected. The most terrifying aspect of werewolf superstition was how it divided communities. Anyone could potentially be a werewolf, especially those who kept to themselves or exhibited unusual strength or appetites. In some regions, elaborate burial practices included severing the tendons of deceased individuals suspected of being werewolves to prevent them from rising from their graves and continuing their transformations in the afterlife. Number 6. Rings of protection. Would you trust your safety to a piece of jewelry? Medieval people absolutely did. Rings weren't just decorative items, they were serious magical tools believed to protect the wearer from everything from poison to demonic possession. Special rings made from rare materials like unicorn horn, actually narwhal tusk, or elk's hoof, were treasured for their supposed ability to detect poison by changing color when dangerous substances were nearby. This was particularly important for royalty and nobility, who lived in constant fear of assassination. Some medieval rings contained tiny compartments where sacred relics or herbs could be stored, creating personalized protection devices. The more ornate and expensive the ring, the more powerful its protective properties were believed to be. Kings and queens would distribute rings to faithful subjects as both rewards and protective charms. There was a widespread belief that wearing a ring on specific fingers connected directly to different internal organs. A ring on the fourth finger of the left hand, for instance, was thought to protect the heart because medieval anatomy suggested a vein ran directly from this finger to the heart. Church officials wore elaborate rings not just as symbols of office, but as actual spiritual shields against demonic influences. Some rings were inscribed with prayers or biblical verses so small they could barely be seen, while others featured carved gemstones believed to have specific powers: emeralds for eyesight, rubies for blood health, sapphires for protection against envy. The most powerful protective rings were those passed down through generations, accumulating strength with each family member who wore them. Number 5. Walking corpses and revenants. Did medieval people actually believe the dead could rise? Absolutely, and they took extreme measures to prevent it. Unlike our modern zombie concept, medieval revenants, returning dead, were believed to be corpses reanimated by their own malicious spirits or by demons. Archaeological evidence from medieval cemeteries shows bodies buried with stones placed in their mouths, decapitated heads placed between the legs, stakes driven through the chest, or limbs removed and bound, all methods to prevent the dead from rising and walking again. Written records from the period describe incidents of supposed revenants terrorizing villages, spreading disease, and attacking the living. In 1140, William of Newburgh chronicled multiple accounts of the walking dead, including one case where a recently deceased man would leave his grave at night to wander around his former home, causing his widow such distress that villagers eventually exhumed the body, found it suspiciously well preserved and bloated with blood, and burned it to ash. The fear was so real that special prayers and rituals were developed specifically to ensure the dead stayed dead. Some communities employed professional corpse handlers who knew the proper burial techniques to prevent reanimation. Particularly feared were those who died by suicide, murder victims, and those who died without proper last rites, all believed to be at higher risk of returning. Medieval people would sometimes bury problematic individuals at crossroads, believing the crossing paths would confuse the spirit and prevent it from finding its way back to the village. Number 4. Divination through animal entrails. Would you read your future in animal guts? Medieval people regularly did just that. The practice of haruspicy divination through examining the entrails of sacrificed animals was surprisingly common despite official church condemnation. While ancient Romans had formalized this practice into a science, medieval folk continued it in a less structured but equally serious manner. Every part of the animal's internal organs was believed to reveal different aspects of the future. The liver might show coming weather patterns, the heart could reveal matters of love and loyalty, while the intestines might map out future journeys or family fortunes. Professional diviners were sometimes consulted before important decisions like marriages, business ventures, or travel plans. The practice wasn't limited to professional fortune tellers either. Ordinary farmers would examine the organs of slaughtered livestock for signs about the coming harvest or winter severity. Some regions had specific traditions, examining sheep livers before planting season or goat hearts before war. The more unusual or deformed an organ appeared, the more significant the omen was considered to be. Medieval hunting parties would sometimes stop to read the entrails of the first kill of the day, deciding whether to continue the hunt based on what they saw in the animal's organs. The church repeatedly tried to stamp out these practices, considering them pagan holdovers, but they remained deeply embedded in rural medieval life, with people often blending Christian prayers with these ancient divination methods. Even some medieval physicians incorporated aspects of haruspicy into their medical practices, believing animal organs could reveal information about human ailments. Number 3. Bells against storms and evil. Have you ever wondered why church bells ring during storms? Medieval people believed these powerful sounds could literally repel evil weather. Church bells weren't just for calling the faithful to worship. They were considered powerful weapons against demons, storms, and countless invisible dangers. Massive church bells were inscribed with protective prayers and blessed with elaborate ceremonies before being installed in bell towers. During thunderstorms, bell ringers would pull the ropes frantically, believing the sound waves could physically disperse storm clouds controlled by demons or witches. This dangerous practice resulted in numerous bell ringers being struck by lightning over the centuries, but the superstition persisted nonetheless. Beyond weather control, bells were rung during plagues to purify the air of disease causing miasma, during solar eclipses to prevent the sun from being permanently devoured, and at the moment of death to guide the departed soul safely to heaven while keeping evil spirits at bay. Smaller bells were carried by travelers for protection on dangerous roads, while lepers were required to ring hand bells to warn others of their approach. The casting of bells involved numerous superstitious practices, including the addition of silver coins, blessed water, and sometimes even small religious relics melted into the bronze to enhance their protective powers. Some medieval communities maintained specific alarm bells that would only be rung in times of supernatural danger, distinct from the bells used for daily timekeeping or church services. Number 2. Demonic possession and household objects. Could your everyday items be possessed by demons? Medieval households lived in genuine fear of this possibility. Common household objects that behaved strangely, milk that wouldn't churn to butter, bread that wouldn't rise properly, or tools that broke unexpectedly, were often suspected of demonic influence rather than having natural explanations. Particularly feared were items made from hollow materials like reeds or certain woods, believed to provide convenient hiding places for minor demons. When a medieval person purchased a new household item, they would often have it blessed or sprinkle it with holy water before bringing it fully into their home. Objects that came from suspicious sources, especially if purchased from strangers or found along roadways, required special purification rituals. Some households maintained specific demon traps, usually containers with intricate designs meant to attract and capture any wandering evil spirits before they could possess more valuable items. Particularly careful households would never leave certain objects, like knives or scissors, with their points facing upward, believing this created an invitation for demons to slide down the blade into the household. Items that had been used in the commission of crimes or sins were considered especially susceptible to demonic habitation, and medieval courts sometimes ordered the destruction of objects involved in serious offenses. Perhaps most feared were mirrors and reflective surfaces, which weren't just soul traps but potential portals through which demons could enter the physical world. Items that had belonged to people who died bad deaths, suicides, murders, or those who died without last rites were considered extremely dangerous and were often buried with the deceased rather than risking their continued use. Number 1. Holy water as ultimate protection. Would you bathe in blessed water to protect yourself from evil? Medieval people considered holy water the ultimate multi-purpose spiritual weapon. This wasn't just regular water with a blessing. It was believed to be fundamentally transformed through priestly rituals into a substance with remarkable powers. Medieval households kept supplies of holy water near their doors in special containers, using it daily for protection. Every Sunday, churchgoers would bring small containers to refill with fresh holy water from the church font. Before important journeys, medieval travelers would splash themselves with holy water and carry small vials of it among their possessions. During childbirth, holy water was sprinkled around the birthing chamber to protect both mother and newborn from evil influences during this vulnerable time. The wealthiest medieval households maintained dedicated holy water fonts similar to those in churches, while humbler homes used whatever containers they could spare. Holy water was added to animal feed during outbreaks of livestock disease and sprinkled on fields before planting. Medieval physicians sometimes incorporated holy water into medicines, believing it enhanced healing properties while protecting against demonic interference in the healing process. During exorcisms, holy water was the priest's primary weapon, used liberally on the possessed person while reciting prayers. The production of holy water itself involved elaborate rituals, with the most powerful varieties created during Easter services or saints' feast days. Some believers were so convinced of its power that they would drink holy water when ill or apply it to wounds. The most devout kept special holy water collected from important pilgrimage sites like Jerusalem or Rome, believed to be exponentially more powerful than ordinary parish holy water. How many of these medieval superstitions still influence your thinking today, even if you don't realize it?